James Person is coordinator of the Hyundai Motor Korea Foundation Center for Korean History and Public Policy at the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars. He joins us to discuss all the latest news from the Korean Peninsula, and there certainly has been a lot. Let's begin with the most recent. The newly minted Secretary of Defense, General Mattis, hops on a plane and first stop is South Korea. What's the significance of that?
It's very significant. There was some troubling rhetoric during the presidential campaign that was cause for concern in Seoul and as well in Tokyo. As a candidate, President Trump suggested that Korea needed to do more in terms of burden sharing, despite the fact that Korea does already provide for roughly half of the expenses for stationing our troops in Korea. He also suggested that South Korea should get its own nuclear weapons, which really goes against 7 decades of
Trump,
or candidate Trump rather, yes,
right.
Which goes against 7 decades of this bipartisan non-proliferation agreement, and so it there were some concerns in Seoul about the commitment of the United States.
And how seriously to take campaign rhetoric?
Well, if a candidate makes a statement, they expected that this was reflected the future policies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they took it seriously, I think, and there was some concern. So it's important that this trip was the first one that Secretary Mattis made, and fortunately, President Trump did demonstrate through a call with the acting president of South Korea just before Secretary Mattis' trip, where he did in fact say that our commitment to Korea's national security is ironclad. And Secretary Mattis' trip is reinforcing that, and my understanding is that the trip has been quite successful. The discussions have been positive. The U.S. and it remains fully committed to the security of South Korea, and I think it's alleviated a lot of the concerns over our commitment and our credibility as an ally.
So this didn't happen in a vacuum. Much of this is in response to ICBM testing or rhetoric from North Korea. How much do we know about where North Korea is on that technology and how serious that potential threat is?
Well, so in his New Year's address, every North Korean leader makes a New Year's address, sort of laying out the plans for the next year. Kim Jong-un did mention that he plans within 2017, to develop their ICBM technology and to develop the capability of delivering a nuclear-tipped ICBM, or fully developing it so that, in theory, it could reach the U.S. homeland. I think there was a lot of speculation that they would try to do something around the election, or not the election rather, but the inauguration.
Mm-hmm.
You had reports from, for example, the Ministry of Defense in South Korea that North Korea had loaded 2 missiles or 2 devices on mobile launchers, but we haven't seen anything yet, and it should be noted that the devices were smaller, according to satellite imagery, than any ICBM technology that we're aware of. We know that they've conducted a number of tests that would enable them to advance their technology, but we haven't seen any recent tests. And frankly, I would have been surprised if they had tried to rush the test of an ICBM for a political purposes. It could easily end in an embarrassment for the North Koreans. So I think if they do continue to try to develop this, and one would hope that we will soon try to find a way to prevent them from advancing their technology and developing the ability to deliver a
Does
warhead.
that mean military intervention?
Of course, there are going to be many. There are many ways, many approaches to dealing with this. You have some people that are suggesting that we should strike their test facilities or fire, shoot down any device that's tested. But one cannot rule out negotiations completely either. I think there's one concern that I have in the future of the U.S.-South Korean relationship is that with just in the past few days, Ban Ki-moon, who was probably the leading candidate from a conservative party, although he never really indicated which party he would run with if he were to run. In fact, he never even declared his candidacy, but it was all but declaring. I mean, he was clearly moving in that direction, but he withdrew. And this elevates people who are the leading candidate now would clearly be in favor of re-engaging with North Korea. And the danger I see is that the U.S. and South Korea may not be on the same page anymore in dealing with
Of what
North
level
Korea.
of engagement with
Right,
North Korea
right,
makes sense.
right.
Given all these particulars, you've looked at this situation over a long course of history. How do you rate the current level of tension? How concerned should we be that this is reaching some boiling point?
North Korea seems to be, and again, I don't know, I don't know what, I mean, they may fire off a rocket tomorrow, but they seem to be demonstrating some restraint right at this moment, waiting to see what a policy from
What plans the new administration has for
what plans
them,
the U.S. the Trump administration has for dealing with them, but there is so much uncertainty right now, given what's happening in South Korea, given the fact that we don't yet have a clear policy. There's a lot of uncertainty. I don't know that means that we are on the verge of war on the Korean Peninsula.
Along the lines of uncertainty, a week or so ago, we had the reports of the Korean high-level Korean defector saying that he thought that the regime in North Korea was potentially on its last legs. Should we take that seriously?
I think most experts would not agree with that statement. Wishful thinking, perhaps. He clearly, his defection last August, this is Tae Young-ho, he was the deputy ambassador to London. His defection, of course, is important because it's the highest level of defection since, I think, 1997 when Hwang Jung-yup defected. He was some claim was very instrumental in defining the political ideology of North Korea, Juche. So it's as a high-level defector, people are paying a lot of attention to him. They're paying a lot of attention to any statements he makes. He's not your average defector. I mean, not just because of his high-level status, but also this guy speaks beautiful English and with a British accent, and he's willing to get out and really get in, engage with the public in events, and he's saying a lot of things that I think a lot of people want to hear.
You're describing a bit of a media gadfly.
No, I don't want to say that he's a media gadfly, but he's clearly I think he clearly wants to believe what he's saying.
Wishful thinking on his part.
Yeah, I mean he there is evidence of an increase over past years in the number of defections. Defections were down the first few years after Kim Jong-un took power in 2011. But I think last year there was a slight increase in the number of defections. Among those, the number of defections of ranking people increased. Although, as I said again, he is the highest ranking since 1997. But again, I think most experts would disagree that it's on its last legs. Kim Jong-un seems to be consolidating his authority, and the state seems to be muddling along still.
Well, it remains so impenetrable that we appreciate any peek inside that we can get from people like you. So, James, thanks again for joining us. And
Thanks very
we'll
much.
be back. Lots of stories that will continue to move forward.
Great. Thanks very much, John.
Thank you.